Every crime leaves a trail. Every clue tells a story. And every truth demands to be uncovered.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at a deeply distressing and, honestly, incredibly sobering report coming out of Maharashtra's Parbhani district. It's one of those cases that really forces us to confront the devastating reality of domestic violence and just how terrifyingly fast a situation can escalate into something irreversible. We're going to walk through the exact sequence of events, step by step, using the specific facts reported by the Charathana police. We need to break down the exact chronological path of what happened on that fatal Wednesday morning. It's a heavy topic for sure, but an absolutely crucial one for us to understand with total clarity. Okay, let's dive into this timeline. The police reports give us a very specific, rapid sequence of events, and tracing them chronologically really highlights how sudden this escalation was. Right at 5:15 a.m., before the day has even properly begun, the accused, Sridhar Gaikwad, takes his wife on a two-wheeler ride out to their agricultural field. Now, as soon as they get to the farm, a quarrel breaks out. And the stated trigger for this argument, according to the police, his alleged suspicions regarding her character. But here is the truly harrowing part. There is no de-escalation whatsoever. Immediately after the quarrel starts, it turns right into a fatal assault. The speed at which this morning went from a simple ride to the farm to a murder is just staggering.
Actually, before we look closer at the mechanics of the incident itself, I think we really need to pause for a second. Sumitra Sridhar Gaikwad, she was just 38 years old. When we look at news reports and timelines and data points, it's way too easy to get lost in that cold procedural language like the accused or the deceased. But the whole foundation of this explainer is the tragic loss of a real human life. Sumitra's life ended brutally that morning, and it is so important that we ground our understanding of these events in the human tragedy of her loss before we move forward.
Now, what's really interesting about this aspect of the case is that this fatal event wasn't just some isolated argument that sparked out of nowhere. According to statements that local villagers provided to the Charathana police, the accused would frequently assault his wife. This one revelation entirely shifts how we view the timeline we just looked at. It reveals this grim, pre-existing pattern of domestic abuse leading right up to the fatal incident. This Wednesday morning wasn't an anomaly. It was the final, devastating peak of a history of violence that the local community was actually already acutely aware of. So, if we break down the exact geography of where this happened, a pretty chilling picture of isolation starts to emerge. The broader location is Charathana village, which is in the Jintur Tahsil of Parbhani district. But specifically, the accused took Sumitra out to an agricultural field situated right along the Jintur-Jalna highway. Think about it. Taking someone to a remote farm location at 5:15 in the morning, that inherently limits their ability to seek help and basically eliminates the chance for anyone nearby to intervene. The geography itself literally played a huge role in the vulnerability of the victim during those final moments. When we look at the reported motive directly next to the fatal actions, the contrast is absolutely harrowing. The catalyst was an argument fueled by his suspicions regarding his wife's character. And his reaction? A brutal escalation into overwhelming physical violence. In a reported fit of rage, he didn't just strike her, he assaulted her with a stick and then escalated the violence even further by smashing her head with a large stone. It's horrifying, but this stark comparison removes any sensationalism. It simply presents the terrible facts of how a verbal dispute over suspicions escalated into a lethal physical assault that left Sumitra dead on the spot. Let's move on and see how the aftermath of this builds. This rapid escalation immediately triggered a swift procedural response from authorities. Right after the murder, the accused didn't run away, he went directly to the Charathana police station to surrender and confess. Upon getting this confession, a police team rushed straight to the scene and conducted a panchanama, which is basically the official on-site documentation of a crime scene. From there, Sumitra's body was sent to the rural hospital in Jintur for a post-mortem examination to gather the forensic evidence. And finally, her body was handed over to her grieving family. This whole procedural sequence really illustrates the swift administrative machinery that kicks into gear, but sadly, only after the irreversible damage is already done. So, we've walked through the timeline, the stark facts of the crime, and the tragic loss of a 38-year-old woman. But as we look at the complete picture of this case, we're left with a really provocative question that goes far beyond just a police report. Knowing that the villagers were actually aware of his frequent assaults prior to this fatal day, we have to ask ourselves, how can communities better recognize and intervene in escalating domestic abuse? What warning signs are we missing? Or, perhaps even ignoring, until it is entirely too late? This explainer lays bare the facts of one horrific tragedy, but I really want to leave you to reflect deeply on the systemic issues that allow escalations like this to occur in the very first place. Thank you so much for joining me to process and understand this crucial information.